Isabella pushed open the penthouse door and found a small, unmarked envelope lying on the marble table. Suspicion tightened her throat the moment she saw the seal. Her fingers stalled above the paper before she could touch it. A man's voice came through the study speaker, clipped and distant, arranging something she was not part of, and the sight of the envelope made the problem immediate. Someone had moved pieces of her life without telling her. She tore the flap with one hand and pulled out a single sheet folded twice. The lines on that page changed the night into an active danger she could see and handle. Isabella folded the paper back once, then twice, then slipped it into her palm and crossed the living room to the study. She did not stop at the doorway. The study light was on. Daniel's silhouette sat behind the desk in the built-in speaker's glow. He did not look surprised when she entered. His phone still hummed a conference call in the background. You re-home early," his voice was smooth. He kept the tone that had kept their evenings polite for years. "Who left this?" "Isabella," and the paper lay heavy in her hand like a fact. Suspicion pushed her forward. She set the envelope on the desk and slid the opened sheet between them. The room smelled of cedar, wood polish, and the faint burn of espresso. The paper showed a stamped signature and a list of transfers with a name she recognized, her name, tied to a company she had never heard of. Daniel reached for the sheet, his fingers covering the stamp. He did not take it. Instead, he folded his hands and managed his expression the way he managed quarterly meetings. "Isabella, it's nothing you need to worry about," he said. His jaw tightened just enough that she saw control working like a muscle. "Nothing." Isabella set her palm over the paper as if to stop it from sliding off the desk. Doubt flicked through her, then hardened. She watched his fingers, saw the way his watch caught the lamp. She sensed, without guessing, that this folded page was the hinge of a door she had been excluded from. Her voice was steady when she asked, "Explain it to me, Daniel." Her fingers brushed the delicate gold bracelet at her wrist. She always touched it when she needed to steady herself. Daniel named companies and legal terms. He used tidy phrases. Contingencies, fiduciary structure, legacy management. He arranged the language like someone arranging furniture. He kept saying the same two things. It was for her protection and it was standard. Isabella listened. Each word he chose pulled at the suspicion under her skin and forced another question out of her mouth. She left the study before he finished sorting his sentences. In the bedroom, she packed a coat and a slim notebook. She called Lena on the drive down the building's quiet ramp. "Lena, are you awake? I need you now." She the name like a lifeline. Lena arrived at dawn with a tote and a look that did not waste time on pleasantries. They met at a small cafe under the building, the staff folding chairs and watching the street sweepers move past. Isabella laid the folded page on the table between two steaming cups and watched Lena read. Lena's face closed and then opened into something that moved faster than worry, clarity. "We don't know yet," Lena, tasting the words carefully. She pushed the cup aside and set both palms on the paper. "But this is a power of attorney and a transfer. Whoever signed this moved control of your accounts into a shell. Who signed it? Daniel's signature is on it, Isabella." Her voice thinned. Doubt turned again into fear, not theatrical panic, but a cold, actionable fear that made her check the cafe door twice. "Daniel's." "But he says it's protection." She folded her hands inward and forced them to be still. Lena leaned in. "We check his things. We photocopy. We get proof." She used short sentences the way she used practical tools. "Isabella, you need to see what he keeps locked." They drove back before the sun rose fully. In the apartment, Isabella moved like someone tracing a surface for seams. Her high cheekbones were set. The scar on her right eyebrow flashed when she concentrated. Lena opened the study drawer with a hairpin, a pragmatic motion that said she had done this before. The briefcase was heavier than Isabella expected. The safe required a code, and Lena held the edge of the briefcase and their breath as Isabella tried numbers she thought Daniel might use. Her fingers found the correct press like a memory unlocked. Inside the briefcase, beneath a stack of schedules, they found a ledger and a small stamped folder. The folder held a forged power of attorney and transfer documents that named Isabella as the beneficiary but listed a shell company, Arbor Vale Holdings, as the actual owner of accounts and titles. The legal language was clear. The signature looked like Daniel's. Each document was a small, concrete lie. Dates, stamps, initials. "Lena, This is bigger than an argument, Isabella, she the name again, steady. She tapped the page, he didn't just lie. He moved things without telling you. Her nails left a faint mark on the paper. Isabella felt the room compress. She could feel her pulse at the base of her throat. Fear moved through her into a tight, practical calm. She did not speak for a moment. Then she said, "We copy everything." Now she handed Lena the notebook she had grabbed and watched her write names and document numbers in steady script. They had almost finished when the study door slammed. Daniel had not knocked. He stood in the doorway with one hand on the handle and his face arranged into the same public polish that had helped him command rooms. He closed the door with a quiet sound and crossed the room the way someone crosses a stage. "You went through my things," he said. His voice did not rise, but the sentence landed like weight. He had been planning this sentence. He had rehearsed the exact cadence. Isabella felt the air between them become a thing he could measure and claim. Daniel, Lena standing. She kept her palms visible. "We found documents. We need to know why you signed these." Her voice was sharp but controlled. She used his full name to place him in the middle of the accusation. Daniel's expression did not break. He moved to the desk and reached for the documents. "Give them here," he said. He took the folder from Lena's hand with a motion that was polite and quick. He skimmed the documents, then folded them flat and set them down with the same deliberate care he used on expensive glassware. "Isabella, you know I would never put you at risk," he said. He leaned forward and kept his hands on the desk. He measured the space between them like an argument he had already won. "These are administrative. They protect both of us. Signatures were needed and I handled them." His voice stayed even. He looked at her with a small dimple of practiced charm that used to make her laugh. Isabella's mouth dry, she reached for the documents. Her fingers shook. She set them down on the leather blotter instead. The room felt colder now that the truth had a face. She tried 3 lines of questions in quick succession. "Which accounts?" she asked. "Why a shell? Why am I not told?" Each question was a tool to pry open something he was closing. Daniel answered in the same measured tone, but his control slipped in small places. A check of his phone mid-sentence, a tightened jaw. He offered one sentence of reassurance after another. He used the language of stability. "You are protected. I am protecting you. Trust me." The words did not land like trust. They sounded like instructions. Isabella's doubt shifted into a sharper fear. She could feel her palms go clammy. She pressed a thumb into her wrist and said, "You made legal moves without me. You signed documents in my name. That's not protection, Daniel. That's possession." Her voice rose a notch. A flash of irritation crossed Daniel's face. He took 3 quick breaths. Then he spoke with a clarity that trimmed the room. "Isabella, sign this and you keep your lifestyle. Refuse and you leave. I will not negotiate my business in public." He set an ultimatum on the desk as if it were a sealed envelope. The impact of the ultimatum landed like a physical knock. Isabella's breath contracted. She tasted copper. A new emotion threaded through her, betrayal made precise enough to be an action. Her hands curled into fists. She did not look at Lena but felt Lena's presence like an anchor. Lena stepped forward. "Daniel, you can't do that. She has rights." Her voice hardened. The short exchange that followed was quick and raw. "Lena, leave this to me." "Daniel, no." "Isabella makes her own choice," Lena replied. "Isabella, sign it." "Daniel, I won't sign a lie," Isabella answered. "Then you leave." "Daniel, we will copy these first." "Lena." They moved fast. Lena pulled a small camera from her tote and photographed each page, while Isabella gathered papers and slipped them into an envelope. Isabella passed it on a calm face, but inside each breath stuttered. Her suspicion had become evidence. Her evidence demanded action. They copied everything and hid the duplicates in Isabella's coat. Daniel tried another tactic, charm wrapped in threat. He smiled with one corner of his mouth and invoked the life he had built. "Isabella, look at what you have, the apartment, the travel, the doors I open. Is that all you want gone tomorrow?" He did not shout. He did not need to. The sentence assumed a calculus and expected her to fold into it. Isabella's answer was emotion rather than a speech. She slid a slim bag into her arm and set a small packed pouch on the sofa. She moved like someone who had rehearsed the escape in her head, but had never said it out loud. Her hands did the choosing she could not yet speak. Daniel left the room with an iron quiet. He closed the study door behind him, and the sound was final. Lena kept watching the closed wood as if she could see what Daniel planned. Isabella and Lena finished packing a small bag together with methodical care, one pair of shoes, a change of clothes, a charger, a folder with photocopies. Each item was concrete and necessary. Isabella felt something shift again. From fear toward resolve. She did not smile, she did not make a speech. She packed actions into place and let those actions speak for her. Lena's hands moved fast. She folded each piece of paper and slid it into the slim notebook. The plan was simple. Leave tonight, get proof, meet a private investigator. Before dawn, they were in a parked car with the engine off, listening to the building murmur. Isabella checked the envelope of copies in her lap. She kept one hand on the delicate gold necklace she had worn since her engagement, a small habit that steadied her. The ritual of touch was not a poetic moment, it was a steadying tool. At a dim diner a few blocks from the river, Isabella met Marco, a private investigator Lena had worked with before. Marco placed a file on the vinyl table and pushed it toward her. He slid a photograph over the top, a bank transfer with the shell company's rotting information. Isabella leaned in and read. Marco's voice was low and factual. This looks like more than a domestic issue. Marco, there are transfers tied to 2 offshore accounts and an LELC network. Arbor Vale appears as a holding company for several properties and accounts you have access to on paper, but not in reality. He pointed with a blunt finger to a column on the sheet. Someone made the paperwork look clean. Someone used Daniel's influence. His tone drew a line between personal betrayal and a business structure that used her name. Isabella felt that line like a physical barrier. Her suspicion that began with the sealed envelope had become precise knowledge. Doubt had moved into fear, and fear had moved into a sharpened, stubborn clarity. She needed to untangle legal knots, not only confront Daniel. Without commentary, she ran her finger along one ledger entry and said, "Show me dates. Show me signers." Her voice was small but exact. Marco set more pages before her. Each page gave her a new angle. He pointed to payments she had seen as charitable contributions that had been rerouted. He pulled a corporate registry printout that led to a trust registered under a lawyer's name. Each new document tightened the stakes and widened the scale. Isabella realized the deception reached beyond their marriage. "Lena, we have enough to start a case." She kept her voice pragmatic. She looked at Isabella and then at Marco. "Isabella, what do you want to do now, Lena?" Isabella paused. She balanced the weight of the file, the copied documents, and the tiny bag in her lap. She thought of the ultimatum, of the apartment's marble table where the first paper had waited. She thought of the way Daniel managed his expressions and of the hidden signatures that had arranged her life without permission. She folded her hands over the envelope and said, "We don't go back tonight. We file these with my lawyer, we demand an accounting. And we let Daniel know the papers exist outside his control." She each point like instructions. Marco nodded. "I'll open a preliminary file and pull corporate filings. I can serve notice if you want. I'll also check who else is on Arbor Vale's roster." His tone was businesslike, his role clear. He placed his card on the table. "I'll be discreet." Isabella took the card and slipped it into her coat. The diner light blinked outside, traffic beginning to scrape the glass. The plan was in motion, but the immediate danger of the night remained unresolved. Daniel had issued an ultimatum, and he believed he could remove her from the life he had built. Isabella felt the night's events settle into shape. A confrontation, copies made, a private investigator engaged. The chapter's challenge had been answered with action. They left the diner with the file between them like a map. Isabella did not feel triumphant. She felt like someone who had chosen an ordinary toolset and used it. She had turned suspicion into documents, fear into a plan. The small gold pendant she carried against her palm clicked against the metal of Marco's card and reminded her that choices have textures, cool metal, paper edges. The weight of a handbag. When they arrived back near the building, Isabella paused at the driver side door and watched the penthouse lights high above. She did not go upstairs. She tucked the photocopies deeper into her coat and said, "Tomorrow I will call my lawyer. Tonight I sleep at Lena's. We'll move forward in the morning." The sentence was a decision made in the open. A horn honked 2 blocks away. A garbage truck rumbled past. The city's ordinary sounds had not changed, but Isabella's relationship to those sounds had. She felt resolve settle in her hands. She felt Fear's sharp edges still there but controlled. Lena placed a hand on Isabella's shoulder once, then let go. Isabella looked down at the copied page again. The original had been left on the marble table as if someone expected her to find it. She had found it. She had turned it into a path. The chapter ended not with a declaration but with an action that fixed their next steps. She folded the copies into the notebook, handed one set to Marco, and gave Lena a look of thanks that did not need words. Then she locked the contact information into her phone. They drove away from the building with headlights cutting the streets into bright ribbons. Isabella felt the night contract around the car and then expand into a plan she could carry. She had escaped the immediate ultimatum, and she had proof beyond Daniel's reach. The last image of the night was simple and concrete. Isabella holding a single sheet of paper in the diner light, watching Marco close his folder, and hearing the faint click of Lena's keys as she locked her tote. The next step would be legal, loud, and messy, and it would begin with those photocopies. The chapter closed on that action, not on a promise, on a chosen, deliberate movement toward uncovering what had been hidden. Isabella slid a returned coat off the cloakroom rack and froze when a woman's silk scarf and a small engraved key slipped into her palm. Suspicion tightened her throat the second she saw the key. The engraving matched the tiny monogram on the penthouse service lock. She did not stand there thinking. She moved through the crowd with the key folded in her fist, heading for the terrace where Daniel had taken a call. The central problem was concrete. Someone had a copy of a key to her home, and the luxury that felt like protection might be a setup. She found Daniel on the rooftop, phone still warm in his hand. The city hummed below them, gala lights and taxi streaks, and Isabella held the key out without a preface. "This was in a coat for me," she said. Her voice was flat. She kept the word suspicion in her tone, as if saying it could shape the night. Daniel blinked, arranged his expression, and dropped a practiced smile. "Isabella, it was probably a mix-up. People swap things at cloakrooms all the time." He closed the gap between them with a measured step, palms visible, face smooth, as if he could iron out doubt. She forced a laugh that did not reach her eyes. "Daniel, that key has the service monogram. It fits our lock." She watched him for the briefest hesitation that would prove or disprove him. His reply was a deflection. "If someone had access, they'd have to live here or be close to someone who does. We'll check the footage. Don't jump to conclusions." He the last 3 words with the same tidy cadence he used for press interviews. The situation required action, not waiting. Isabella herself that as Daniel led her back down the terrace steps. Within the first hour she called Lena. She kept the key in her coat pocket and spoke without primble. "Lena, I found a key in a coat. It matches our service lock." Her sentence was clipped. Her fingers kept touching the delicate gold necklace beneath her collar. Lena reacted the way Lena usually did. Practical, blunt. "Don't hand it to Daniel. Meet me at my apartment in 20. Bring the key and don't say anything in the building office yet." Her voice left no space for argument. They met in Lena's kitchen the next morning. Lena set a mug of black coffee in front of Isabella and spread the key on the counter like evidence. "This is not a mistake, Bella. Someone with access is watching you. We call Ethan and we check the building logs." Now she suggested a private investigator, but she added, discreetly, "Daniel can't know we're redoing this yet." That last clause carried its own accusation. Isabella felt the first shift from suspicion into a slow, controlled anger. She tightened her fist around the mug until porcelain whispered. "Ethan Blake, yes, call him." She let Lena's plan organize her steps. Action steadied her. Ethan arrived that afternoon. He was precise, wearing a navy jacket with a camera bag slung over his shoulder and a notepad. He listened while Isabella explained the coat, the silk scarf, the engraved key, and the envelope from before. The small unmarked envelope she had found on the marble table at the penthouse the week earlier. The envelope had been the start. This key made the situation bigger. "Ethan, we pull footage, logs, delivery records. If someone used a duplicate, we'll catch the time stamp and angle of approach." He spoke quickly, confidence as a tool. Lena stood with her arms folded and watched Daniel on the security monitor later, his profile lit like a sculpture. They went to the building security room at midday. Marco, the building manager, operated the console. The monitor rows hummed. Each screen offered a small square of city life. Marco clicked through feeds and the group leaned over the keyboard as if proximity could prompt truth. The footage revealed a shadowed figure using a duplicate key to enter Isabella's penthouse at 2 in the morning. The figure moved with an easy familiarity, no fumbling, just a practiced hand on the service door. A brief glint near the wrist could have been a cufflink. Isabella felt her stomach drop. The emotion shifted again, from anger into a cold, sharp fear. Her hands left fingerprints on the edge of the console. She could not name who wore the cufflink, but the movement suggested insider access and someone confident they would not be noticed. "Pause there," she told Marco. "Zoom on the wrist." Marco obliged. The footage widened slightly. A sliver of a navy sleeve caught the light. Daniel's name rose in the room like a measured syllable. Leonard, low and hard, Daniel. Ethan didn't add anything. He set to work cross-referencing delivery logs and entrance swipes. Marco hesitated when they asked about a logged late night delivery. There was a note. Marco, eyes avoiding Isabella's, but the driver signed with a digital pad. The name field was blank. "I can pull the time stamp." His hesitation read like someone being careful with a fragile truth. Isabella and Ethan confronted Marco in the manager's cramped office. The air smelled of cleaning solution and cold espresso. Marco stammered through an explanation about late night maintenance, then offered a vague excuse about an outside contractor. Isabella watched him closely. When she asked if anyone had been paid for silence, Marco's jaw tightened and he said nothing. His silence carried weight. They left the office with a new lead, and a thin thread of fear that now looked like something they could follow. Ethan had reports to run. Lena insisted on visiting the cloakroom again. Isabella drove back to the gala venue with the scarf wrapped carefully in her bag. At the cloakroom, she found the attendant who had handled her coat. The attendant, a young man with ink on his fingers, recognized the scarf and told them a delivery van had been outside the back entrance the previous night. That van entry shifted the scale of possibility. It meant planned access, not a random mistake. Isabella sat in the passenger seat of Lena's car and felt her jaw tighten. She bit the inside of her cheek until salt rose in her mouth. She spoke sharply. "If someone planned this, then they prepared for our routines. They know when I'm gone and when I'm home." Lena drove with a focus that matched her words. Ethan's first report came in the afternoon by text. 3 late entries on the service lock, all in the early morning hours, all showing a handheld dark shape and a wrist glint. He added a note. One entry corresponds with a maintenance sign in at 2:12 m, manager's signature, Marco. Delivery company listed, but no name. Ethan's shorthand made the discovery feel official. Isabella read it at the kitchen island and pressed her thumb over the screen until the digits blurred. That evening, Isabella returned to the penthouse alone for the first time since the envelope. She walked the apartment with a methodical step, checking rooms the way a detective checks for evidence. She opened the service door and listened. The apartment smelled faintly of lemon polish and Daniel's cedar leather collard on the hallway coat. She touched the small scar on her right eyebrow, almost without thinking, and felt the tiny ridge under her fingertip. In the bedroom, she found a photograph on the dresser that had not been there before. A candid snapshot of her leaving a gallery opening, time-stamped 12 days earlier. Someone had been tracking her movements for weeks. Isabella's voice was low when she called Daniel that night. "We need to talk about the key." Her sentence contained the accusation. Daniel answered within 2 rings. "I'll be home in 20 minutes, he said. His voice was steady. "Isabella, don't..." He stopped himself. She noticed the pause and the way his fingers might have hovered over his phone. When Daniel arrived, he moved through the apartment with the same composed air he wore in meetings. "If someone's watching, it's to protect you. Some clients request extra security. I had a few calls about a disgruntled former employee. I put security measures in place." His explanation was neat. It sounded plausible. Isabella watched his lips and his hands, looking for a tell. The confrontation in the hidden room had not yet occurred, but the tension ramped toward it. Isabella tested him with direct questions. "Did you authorize a duplicate key? Did you ask Marco to sign the maintenance log with a blank name?" She waited between sentences because she had learned the way Daniel used silence as a tool. He answered in careful increments. "No, I did not authorize a duplicate key, Daniel. If someone set this up, it was unknown to me." He kept his shoulders loose. If you want, I will call my lawyer and security team. His offer read like an attempt to reassure and to regain control. Isabella's anger reasserted itself. She put the key on the coffee table. Daniel, hiding things is how this started. You gave me comfort but not honesty. I need facts. The sentence landed between them like a hand on a table. Daniel's jaw tightened. The faint stubble at his chin rubbed as he ran a hand over his face. The next night Isabella followed a thin lead Ethan had provided. A maintenance corridor map showed a narrow service hallway behind the building's laundry room. Lena waited in the stairwell while Isabella slipped through a service door and moved by the emergency lights, the corridor soundless except for the faint hum of a vac. She carried a small flashlight and the engraved key in her pocket. Her pulse thudded. Fear made her hands steady instead of shaky. The corridor smelled of metal and detergent. She found the hidden door behind a stack of crates. The lock accepted the key with a soft, certain click that made her chest ache. When the door opened, the small room inside was lined with photographs clipped to a wire and shoeboxes of personal items. Receipts, a bracelet that looked like Isabella's, and a folded program from a gallery opening she had attended. Each photograph showed her leaving or entering the penthouse in different outfits. Someone had kept a detailed record. The room made the betrayal tangible. Isabella's breath hitched and then came out in a controlled exhale. She touched a photograph with careful fingers. The image was recent. The timestamp matched a night she had been at dinner with Daniel. She turned and found Daniel standing in the doorway. "Daniel," she said. Her voice had no flourish, only a single precise name. He stepped in as if to remove the weight from the room. "Isabella, listen. I am not the one doing this." He moved closer to the photos, scanning them as if he did not already understand what they implied. "We set surveillance after a break in rumor. I thought extra eyes would help." He gestured toward the boxes with a hand that did not touch anything. Isabella's reaction changed again. Anger, then a brittle clarity. She demanded who authorized the duplicate, who signed Marco's log. Her lines came faster now, 3 short questions in quick succession. Daniel answered with a kind of controlled defensiveness. "I signed nothing blank. I asked for a security sweep. If someone used it improperly, I did not know." He tried to close the distance between explanation and apology. "Isabella, you can call anyone. We will fix this." He held his hands out, palms up like an offer. They moved into a rapid back and forth that became an argument. "Did you ask Marco to log a maintenance visit?" Isabella demanded. "Did you tell anyone to follow me?" She added, "No, I didn't tell anyone to follow you." Daniel replied, "If someone took initiative, it wasn't me. I'm telling you the truth, Isabella. Your truth now is different from your truth last month." "Isabella, you mean the envelope was nothing. You mean to trust the life we built." Her words landed quick and hard. "Isabella, I told you it was an accident." Daniel began. "Stop, Daniel." She cut him off. "Say Marco's name again. Tell me he signed a maintenance log at 2 a.m. The room closed around the two of them. Daniel kept his voice steady. "Marco signed for a late maintenance entry. I did not see the signature. I didn't authorize any duplicate key personally." The argument had the measured cadence required by the rules. 3 to 6 rapid exchanges, names used often, short lines. Each line revealed a detail or a denial. It exposed fissures. At the end of the exchange, Daniel reached for a small leather folder and pulled out a receipt. "I paid for extra security through a third party," he said. And he slid the receipt across a low shelf, though it was temporary. "I didn't read every line." His face opened for the smallest fraction of a second. Isabella caught it and turned it into a question. Ethan's text arrived then, a single phrase. "There's a delivery time stamp with a blank signature. We traced the route to a contractor vehicle used by Whitfield Resources. The plate registers to an outsourced van. The new reveal changed the meaning of earlier details." Isabella read the message, and the room narrowed to the hinge of that single fact. The contractor route connected back to Daniel's company. Isabella stepped back. Her mind moved fast, assembling motives she had not allowed herself to imagine. She felt a surprise, an unexpected twist, when she realized the blank signature could have been arranged by someone inside Daniel's circle rather than an unknown stranger. The twist altered her assumptions. Daniel watched her. "Isabella, I can call my office, explain." He reached out, but she did not take his hand. Instead, she folded the photograph and slid it back into its box. Lena came in at that moment. She had followed the same corridor and listened at the door. She closed it behind her and said, "We need to lock down access records and get Marco to answer directly." "No more meetings alone with Daniel about this," Isabella nodded. The next external event occurred when Marco, summoned and alone in the manager's office, finally admitted a partial truth. He had been pressured by a client representative to sign the log without a full name, that it was urgent, and to keep it quiet, Marco them. Rubbing the bridge of his nose, I thought it was protection for one of the residents. The detail that the call had used Whitfield Resources as a reference pushed the suspicion into a new register. Corporate pressure, plausible deniability. That evening the group met quietly in Lena's living room. Ethan laid out a timeline, entries, 2 a.m. Third, party contractor. Marco's call referenced Whitfield Resources. There's a link, but not proof of Daniel's direct order. He tapped a printed screenshot. We follow the paper trail. We checked the driver's logs and the outsourced contractor's invoices. His methodical approach steadied the group. Isabella experienced an emotion shift from fear into cautious resolve. She stopped pacing and sat down. Her hands, which had trembled when she found the hidden room, now fumbled through the shoebox until her fingers closed around a single gold pendant, the one she wore every day. She clutched it until the metal warmed. The chapter's mini-cliffhanger arrived in the late hours. A call to Isabella's phone from a blocked number that displayed only a single line of text when she answered. Breath. Then a voice speaking clearly enough to be recognized by tone if not identity. "Stop looking in the service corridors, Ms. Morrow. You don't know what you're re-asking for." The line went dead. The interruption forced everyone to stop and listen. It turned private investigation into a threat. Isabella did not speak for a long moment. Lena checked the locks on her doors. "Ethan, we escalate. We file a request to pull contractor invoices and cross-check the plates. I'll handle it. Marco will be on notice." Each external action advanced the plot. At dawn, Isabella left the penthouse with a small suitcase and the pendant in a zippered pocket. The city was wet from overnight drizzle. Street lights reflected in puddles as she locked the door. She did not announce this as an end. She made it a concrete action. The choice was physical. Leave the apartment and pursue the truth outside the safety of its walls. She stepped into Lena's waiting car and closed the door behind her. The penthouse windows glinted behind them, a stack of rooms where someone had kept a record of her. Isabella placed the pendant in her hand and felt its weight. She did not vow or sermonize, she moved. By the end of the chapter, the immediate betrayal had been exposed. The hidden room, the duplicate key, the contractor linked to Whitfield Resources, and Isabella had acted. The small conflicts in this chapter reached a peak with the discovery of the surveillance room and the contractor trace. The final concrete beat closes with Isabella physically leaving the penthouse at dawn, pendant in hand, and a plan to pursue verification instead of accepting an explanation. The chapter ends on that concrete action rather than on reflection. The door locks with a precise click, and a new investigation begins as the city wakes. A courier's gloved hand closed around the envelope as Daniel's thumb slipped free. Isabella lunged and snatched it before the man could step away. Suspicion tightened her jaw the moment the paper touched her palm. She shoved the courier against the low parapet and held the envelope flat between both hands while the wind off the river made the city lights glitter. "Give it back, Daniel." Voice low and controlled, but his eyes went sharp when he saw her fingers curl over the seal. Suspicion is the root of the night. It had pushed her from the marble table where the unmarked packet first arrived and from the returned coat that hid an engraved key. She remembered the first envelope on the penthouse table and the silk scarf that had slipped into her palm weeks ago. Those two small objects had become proof that something in the life Daniel offered was arranged, not honest. Isabella kept the envelope pressed to her chest and stepped closer so the rooftop cold hit her face. "Isabella, this isn't for you, Daniel." And his hand went for the paper. She stepped sideways and the thrill of being caught in public made her fingers tremble. "Give it back, Daniel," she said, and the words came flat. Her palms felt slick. She had learned to measure his steadiness in public and his tight control in private. That control had always kept her from asking direct questions. Tonight she would not step back. The courier tried to pull free. Isabella let him go with a shove that hit his shoulder. The envelope tore where her thumb pressed too hard and a paper slipped out and fluttered over the railing. Daniel lunged to catch it. She grabbed the corner of the falling page and read a line before the wind stole the rest. Conditional trust. Beneficiary contingent upon non-disclosure. Her breath shortened. Fear replaced suspicion for a beat. She heard the courier's shoes sliding on gravel as he ran after the drop pages. She followed Daniel down the service stair before she had fully decided why she was moving. Suspicion had turned into an urgent need to know. In the dim corridor outside the penthouse, the building hum felt magnified. The carpet muffled their steps. "Why are you hiding this?" Isabella demanded. She kept her voice steady, measured. She wanted evidence, not excuses. Daniel tilted his head and managed a polite smile that did not reach his eyes. "Isabella, you're remaking a mistake," he said. He reached for the envelope on the low table by the service door. "You don't understand the context." She moved in front of him and put her palm flat on the paper like a barrier. She would not let him reclaim it unnoticed. She thought of the engraved key she found in the cloakroom and the woman's silk scarf beneath the coat. She thought of the tiny monogram on the service lock. Those earlier discoveries pushed her forward now. Each revelation had tightened her insistence. Her hands were no longer just curious, they wanted leverage. Daniel tried a different tactic. He lowered his voice. "Isabella, there are things you shouldn't see." He sounded both desperate and practiced. The corridor light hit the engraved cufflink at his wrist. Isabella watched his fingers twitch toward his briefcase. Her pulse skittered. She slid the envelope under her coat and moved toward the elevator. At the lobby Marcos, the concierge, stood with a clipboard, jacket sleeves rolled. He looked up when Isabella came down. "Ms. Moreau," he said, and his eyes went to the open envelope in her hand. There was a briefcase by the concierge desk earlier. It fell from a delivery truck. His voice had the plain quality of someone reporting detail, not opinion. The detail landed like a stepping stone. A gust pushed paper onto the marble floor as an elevator opened. A small packet of documents that had escaped the roof courier slid under a potted ficus. Isabella went down on one knee and picked up a folded sheet. She held it until the overhead light showed the typed heading, "Transfer Agreement." Her throat tightened in a way that felt physical. Suspicion moved into fear and then into clarity. In the elevator, Daniel reached for the buttons. His hand was calm, deliberate. "You shouldn't be reading that, Isabella," he said. "There are reputations to protect." She watched him in the dull metal reflection and saw how he managed his expression even when his fingers brushed the engraved key at his belt. "Reputations don't sign my name to binding documents without telling me," she replied. Her voice was short. She felt the first real surge of anger sharpened by betrayal. She stepped out on the lobby floor and tucked a copy of the transfer agreement into her bag. The building manager appeared beside Marcos, phone in hand, voice clipped. "Mr. Whitfield, there's been a complaint about unauthorized access to resident files." Daniel's jaw tightened. He flashed a smile that said he would handle it. He didn't say where he had put the courier or who had hired him. Isabella watched him give orders with precise words and then turn away to keep his posture composed. He had built systems that obscured accountability. That system had a seam, and she had found it. Outside the building, rain began soft and thin, collecting on the taxi's windshield. Isabella and Lena sat in a 24-hour cafe under a single lamp while the city blurred past the glass. The cafe smelled of coffee and warm milk. Lena spread the scattered documents on the table with a blunt movement. "Show me, Lena." She leaned forward, elbows on the wood. Isabella handed over the papers. They were precise, legal, and cold. A clause made Isabella's financial status contingent on signing a non-disclosure and on maintaining certain public assumptions about her past. "This ties you to a trust that transfers if you leave without cause." Lena, voice steady but tight. "It also includes a clause that defines your legal standing depending on one document that can be altered." Lena's rhythm in speech was the same as always. Practical, urgent, direct. Isabella felt the second emotion shift, doubt turning into resolve. "Did you see this before, Isabella?" Her fingers pressed the paper flat. The cafe's table reflected the lamp above like a pool. She remembered the hidden room, the engraved key, the silk scarf. Those objects were not random, they were signals. Lena tapped a line with a fingertip. "No. Whoever drafted this put it where no one would naturally look." but once you find one seam, there are more. We need to get into his study and see what he keeps locked. She folded her hands as if closing a case. You have the key. Use it. The words were blunt and simple. Isabella's breath came out like a measurement. They left the cafe with papers tucked in Lena's tote and the cord of the engraved key in Isabella's palm like a compass. The city felt narrower as they walked. Rain dotted Isabella's coat. They used the service entrance Marcos had pointed out before. Each step into the building hummed with the possibility of discovery. Isabella opened the Pentos study as if rehearsed. The engraved key slid into the service lock and turned with a small, decisive click. The door to the hidden room gave way to cool air and a faint scent of cedar. A narrow shelf had been fitted behind a false panel. Isabella ran a finger along the tops of folders until one caught on her nail and came free. Inside the folder were altered birth records and transfer agreements. Each paper had neat corrections and the same set of initials in the corner. A line showed a different surname listed in a notarized statement. A second emotion shift arrived, clarity moving into righteous indignation. Isabella stood very still and read names that changed the story Daniel had told her about who she was and how she had come into this life. A sound from the corridor made her turn. Daniel's silhouette filled the doorway, framed by the warm study lamp. He moved across the room with the slow assurance of a man who had practiced arrival. He reached for the folder and his fingertips brushed the papers. "Isabella," he said, and his voice tried an even cadence that was part pleading, part command. She stepped between him and the door and fumbled for her phone. "Don't," she said. She moved a finger to record. The red dot on the screen was small but irreversible. Daniel explained this. Her voice did not waver now. The recording steadied her. He tried to take the folder. She held it away. He was near enough for her to see the faint lines at the corner of his mouth. "You don't understand the pressures I face," he started. The sentence was a practiced opener. "Isabella cut him off." "Daniel, whose name is on these birth records?" she asked. Her finger tapped the phone screen to make sure it was on. "Who changed them?" Her questions came fast. Lena had taught her to ask specifics. His jaw worked. He met her gaze and then looked to the Doric molding as if stealing time. "I did what I had to do to secure us," he said. He reached for a rationalization shaped like a contract. "I protected you. I protected our life. You were never supposed to see these details." He kept his tone measured, but his hand clenched into a fist. "Protected me from what, Daniel?" "Isabella." She spoke each word with care. "From knowing my legal standing. From the clause that says I can be cut off if I leave without cause. From a forged birth certificate." Her voice lengthened and then tightened. She felt anger widen into a plan. That movement, planning, was how she transformed feeling into action. "We can work this out," he said. "You don't want the headlines. Think of the family." His voice tried to invoke a circle of people whose opinion mattered. He reached toward the folder again. "Daniel, stop." She held the paper out of reach and stepped back so he could not take it without touching her. He smiled, a small automatic expression that had served him in meetings and parties. The small smile broke when Lena opened the study door and stepped in with Marco standing behind her. "We have copies, Lena." She placed the stack on the desk and pushed a business card toward Daniel's briefcase. "We also sent them to the board." To a journalist who asked for confirmation, her tone was cool, deliberate. Marco set a folded envelope beside the papers. Whitfield, the concierge, saw a delivery manifest that lists third-party trust actions. "I kept the manifest." Marcos's voice had the plainness of human record. Daniel's eyes narrowed. A quick flurry of commands left his mouth and he moved to shelter his phone. "Isabella, you shouldn't have," he began. Lena lifted a hand and met his sentence with a hard cut. "Don't say shouldn't, Daniel. Say you lied." Lena's words landed and the room changed shape. The confrontation quickened. Daniel snapped his briefcase closed and then, in a motion that looked at once practiced and panicked, moved to snatch the original folder. Isabella pulled the folder back. Their hands collided. The phone's red light caught the edge of Daniel's cufflink. He swore, two sharp words that filled the small study. For 3 beats the room held only the sound of their breathing and the shuffling of papers. "Isabella, stop, admit it. Tell Lena the truth now." Her voice was narrow and steady. Daniel's mouth tightened and his eyes darted to the small sexy TV indicator near the shelf. He moved closer and then away as if gauging risk. All of it, she said, the records, the trust, the clause that stripped my name. Tell her why. The demand was simple. It forced the Ark of the Night secret into a single line of truth. He inhaled, the only long sound. Then he spoke in a flat, factual tone that had the effect of confirming everything. There was a clause placed to protect board interests. My name is on the draft, but the instruments were filed to secure a transition that would preserve share control if a scandal threatened us. Your legal status made it smoother. I arranged the trust to keep control in the event of a separation. I altered an old record to match the trust documents. I never told you because I thought you would leave and jeopardize us. His words were a confession, not a plea. Lena listened without flinching. Marcos folded his arms and watched Daniel as if cataloging evidence. Isabella felt the room tilt under the weight of the spoken facts. The emotion that followed was not rhetorical. Her hands shook. She could feel her pulse in the base of her throat. The clarity that came from hearing it aloud pushed her into the decision she had rehearsed in small ways for weeks. Daniel Whitfield, Lena. Using his full name like a label on a file, you used the law to control her. You made her dependent in ways she didn't consent to. Her voice had the steady cadence of someone marking a breach. Daniel's mouth worked, but he found no retort that changed the recorded evidence on the table. He tried bargaining. Isabella, if you come with me, we can fix this privately. No board panic, no public fallout. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the folder as if to claim it. Isabella pulled the folder onto her lap and then stood up. She moved to the doorway with the documents clutched to her chest. No, she said. The word was a solid thing. I will not trade my life for your reputation. Her voice did not sound like a victory. It sounded like a boundary. She handed a copy of the recorded confession to Lena and to Marcos. Lena slid it into her tote with an economy of movement that spoke of plans forming. Daniel's face went blank in a different way. He lost his practiced calm. He reached for his phone and tapped furiously. The manager on the line for him moved through the lobby within minutes. Guests appeared in the foyer asking questions. The building hummed with a new tension. Someone on the board called back. The journalist answered. Outside, a camera light blinked like a small star through the glass. The sequence that had been managed and private was breaking into public air. Isabella felt a strange steadiness as people began to ask questions aloud. She had feared the loss of comfort. Now she felt the cost of silence. When the manager called the concierge in, Marcos handed over the manifest and the briefcase. There are a signed chain of custody notes attached, he said. He pointed to the courier's name on the manifest. The manager's face hardened. We'll need to review security footage, he said. Daniel's quick attempts at control came to a staccato. A small twist arrived that neither Isabella nor Daniel had anticipated. Hidden under a packet in the briefcase was a notarized letter in Daniel's handwriting addressed to a third party, offering a conditional transfer of a corporate share if certain events occurred. The letter's presence made it impossible to dismiss the arrangement as clerical error. Marcos read it aloud. The letter changed how everyone in the room understood Daniel's motives. It turned his private calculus into a concrete record. Daniel grabbed for the folder again. He and Isabella collided in a short, sharp skirmish of hands. 3 rapid exchanges of speech followed. Give me that. No, you don't know what you're redoing. I know exactly what I'm doing. Let go. Daniel stopped. The lines came out like clipped punches. Their voices cut the small, steady air. Isabella did not drop the papers. Her fingers closed on the documents. She felt the adrenaline that had begun as suspicion thin into something like resolve. She moved toward the study door with the paper pressed to her chest and the phone still recording. Lena followed, and then Marcos and the manager. Daniel hesitated in the doorway and then stepped back in a way that looked like defeat. In the foyer, news moved faster than the building's elevators. Daniel tried to call a wide circle of allies to contain the leak. The assistant on Daniel's speed dial did not pick up. The board contact that had once deferred to him left a curt message asking for a meeting and a written explanation. The journalist called back within an hour with 2 precise questions and a promise to check the facts. Isabella sent files to the journalist herself. The act of sending the emails felt like removing a weight. Later, in the bedroom, Isabella pulled a small gold pendant from the dressing table. It was the delicate necklace she had always worn. She pressed it into her palm and felt the cool metal steady her. Lena packed the small suitcase on the bed, folding a sweater and a pair of shoes with quick, efficient hands. Isabella moved items slowly, feeling how familiar objects took on new meaning. Daniel stood at the doorway and offered one last attempt. "Isabella, you can sign a different agreement. We can change terms," his tone tried reason. She met him eye to eye and saw how thin his confidence had become. "No," she said again. She zipped the suitcase shut. He stepped forward and tried to bargain with both a whisper and a raised tone. "Think of the life you will lose. Think of the stability." He reached out but withdrew his hand when Lena's eyes held him steady. The exchange was short and tense. 3 to 6 rapid lines of back and forth filled the room and then fell away. When he realized she would not be swayed, his expression broke into something that was not quite anger, more like the blankness of a man whose options had narrowed. At dawn, Isabella sat in a small rented room with the pendant on the windowsill. The sunrise hit the gold and made a strip of light on the sill. She had a mug in her hands. Lena straightened a stack of papers with neat fingers and put a legal folder on the table. "We filed the preliminary complaint. Lena, we will ask for an audit. We will ask the board to start a review." Her voice laid out steps like a blueprint. Isabella traced the pendant with a fingertip. The jewelry had once been a symbol of comfortable certainty. Now it was a reminder of what she had refused to sacrifice. The final emotional shift moved from wounded betrayal to a hard, edged calm. She could feel a tension behind her ribs ease into a decision that would shape the rest of her days. Marcos called that morning with a simple report. The courier had been identified and placed on leave. The building manager confirmed footage that would be turned over to investigators. Small concrete moves were already changing the scene. Isabella listened and took notes. Lena placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "We will take this one paper at a time." The phrase meant action. The chapter closed with an ordinary, definite gesture. Isabella picked up the pendant, set it inside a small box, and slid the box into the suitcase. She snapped the latch shut and then walked to the window. She opened the sash and set the suitcase by the door. Lena packed the last folder into her tote and checked the flight times they had planned. Isabella felt the city inhale and exhale below her. At that moment the phone buzzed with a single message from an unknown number. A scanned copy of a notarized document that confirmed the altered records chain. Lena glanced at the screen and handed it to Isabella. She read it and folded it into the folder. The final line of the chapter is a clear movement. Isabella placed the folder into her bag, picked up the small suitcase, and closed the apartment door behind her.